Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Worcester School Committee. Please stand if you can to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
roll call.
Member Clancy.
Here.
Member Johnson.
Here.
Member Kamara.
Here.
Member Mailman.
Here.
Member McCullough.
Here.
Member O'Connell Novick.
Here.
And Mayor Petty.
Here. Okay, we have Student Advisory Committee items to explore and utilize as appropriate additional mental health resources for students beyond what is currently provided. Additionally, to make a central location for students to be able to access what resources are available and to make this location known to students. And we have our students here tonight. Welcome. And welcome. And we have, I'll just do my best. If I say your name wrong, just correct me. Won't be the first. But Mary Jane Patar, you're from Worcester Technical High School. You have Molly McCullough as your mentor. We have Anar Dawood. Oh, Dawood. Anar Dawood. Okay, and you're from Doherty High School.
Yes, sir.
And you have Tracy Connell Novick as your mentor. And Tracy's online with us tonight. North, we have Carissa Alexis. Carissa, okay. Alexis from North High School. And you have Laura Clancy as your mentor. Ariana Costaso, and you are from South High School. And you have Sue Mailman. Okay. University Park, Jasmine Conde. What's that? Is she online? Okay. And has Gemma Kamara as a mentor. Burncoat Thomas Sutton, right there. And you have, Gemma too. Gemma, okay, good too. In Claremont, we have Claire Vasquez de la Cruz. Welcome. You're from Claremont. And you get Jermaine Johnson. And Gerald Kramer Center, Tristan Suarez Ramirez. And they have Tracy O'Connell Novick. And Challenge and Reach, Michael Newman. And they drew the low straw. They have me. So we have, so I just want to welcome, I know Jermaine Johnson. I want to thank Jermaine Johnson for putting this together and as the vice chair of the school committee. Much appreciated. So if anybody wants to speak, you're more than welcome tonight. Everybody, so just introduce yourself and.
Hi, my name is Mary Jane Batar. I go to Worcester Technical School, and I was elected as the ex officio member of the Student Advisory Board. So we'd like to speak on this item as we are all students of Worcester Public Schools, and we've come to realize that mental health resources are either improving in certain schools, and then some schools are actually finding a lack of mental health resources. Personally, I can say for Worcester Technical, it is sort of becoming an issue as we feel we're losing some resources that other schools are gaining. And we'd like to make that resources such as a room dedicated to sort of calming your emotions in stressful situations. We'd like to see that in all schools throughout the district, not just a few. That's only one example of it is included in certain schools and not included in others. We'd also like to sort of improve on our club and organization communication, as we feel as clubs and organizations, as underclassmen and upperclassmen, when you are engaged in a club or some sort of group, you find more comfort in schools and you'll be more comfortable just attending school on a daily basis, and you'll look forward to those times where you're surrounded by people you're familiar with. That's a major part of what brings people's mental health up in schools. We'd also find that in certain schools, there is something called a welcoming committee where certain students dedicate time to underclassmen who have just come in, and they will give them tours around the school and make them feel welcome, because it is a completely different situation. And once again, we're only seeing that present in certain schools and not all, and that's a major factor, as we've seen at every sort of survey that we've taken with our schools. It's mainly underclassmen who are dealing with this mental health issue. So we feel something like that would definitely improve on just a little part of it. And that's all I have to say on this.
Very well done. Superintendent's writing down. And, want to say a few? Yeah. Madam Superintendent.
Through the chair, thank you so much for sharing the student perspective. I'm going to have my Chief Academic Support Officer come forward just so you can see a face and a name. This is Annie Asalosa. She is the lead for our Academic Supports Division, where the wellness and mental health sits underneath, and so she will be speaking with all of you so we can get some further consistency. Additionally, at our high schools this year, we have Dean of Students. That's a brand new position, so I think I see you shaking your head. And Ms. Asalosa, along with her team, are starting to work with those deans, so we have that consistency that you're talking about. So your voice will be very helpful in systematizing this throughout the district. We look forward to you helping us to get better in that and really being those champions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Member Johnson?
Thank you. Through the chair, I would just like to add, in the item that they put forth is kind of creating that central location in every school so kids know what the resources are. I just also want to add that I know they are actually speaking and they're representing the high schools that they are currently at, but this actually came up last year in our middle schools as well, of not knowing what's there for services, where to find those, where those are located, so ensuring that that trickles down to our middle schools as well. Thank you.
Okay. Member Kamara?
Thank you to the chair. I actually just want to ask the administration a question about wellness spaces, because it was to my understanding that as of this academic year, that all of our secondary schools, so that includes middle schools and high schools, have wellness spaces, as well as a one-pager that talks about what those spaces are and how they are to be used, because I actually saw it. And I know we have a plan, so I really want to understand how we are going with regards to those rooms being set up. And if there are disparities, I want to understand why they persist.
Yeah. You can do it if you want. Yeah. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. If I could have Ms. Asalosa come up and give an update on to where we are with those questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the question through the chair. Yeah, so we have wellness rooms in all of our secondary schools, so high schools and middle schools. We have our Dean of Students in our high schools. Mr. Tony and I are working to make sure that there's consistency in those wellness rooms. For example, today we spent all morning at Burncoat High just shadowing our Dean of Students and looking to see how the wellness room is working for our scholars. And we hope that we bring consistency across the board to our secondary schools so that they're being utilized in the same manner. And we are also meeting with the deans every week and facilitating trainings with them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other students? Okay. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Looking forward to working with you through the school year. Okay. So we're on the consent agenda. So we're going to, Member Johnson?
Do we know where that's going? Is that going to administration?
Oh, yeah, we can send out the administration, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Those in favor? I'm sorry, roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Melman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Okay, we're on the consent decree. I think the motion is to remove from the consent decree the Gene Haas Foundation grant. And so we'll take on a roll call the consent decree, except for that one item. We'll come back to it. Roll call.
On the consent minus that one item, Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Melman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. We are on, we have 3 items before public comment. So let's go to public comment. We'll come back to those 3 items, if that's okay. So people, in this case, we get into a long discussion. So for public comment, is anybody here for public comment? If you are, this is the time. Anybody? Yeah. No. Yeah, go ahead.
She has a petition.
Oh, yeah, so this is the part of the meeting we allow the public to speak. And you're part of that public, so you have 2 minutes. Just your name and city of residence.
Okay, just so you know, I'm on here under a petition, so.
Oh,
is
we'll
that the
come to
same
your
thing?
petition.
Okay,
Okay, you're next. We'll do after public comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Anybody else? Seeing nobody on the public comment? We can do your petition if you like, so you don't have to sit here tonight. We have Corey Spalding to request to know how the matter of federal and state grants are controlled, appropriated, and accounted for as part of the fiduciary responsibility of the school committee. The motion is going to refer to finance and operations. Ms. Spalding?
thank you very much for your time. Again, I apologize, I thought that I was actually put on the agenda for a discussion. I'm well aware that public comment does not allow for questions to be answered. My concern is, so a little bit of history. I am an accidental whistleblower. I inadvertently exposed fraud in the town of Framingham, where I live, and the Framingham School Committee then excluded my child from attending based on residency. She had to go to Natick. I, again, asked the wrong question and inadvertently learned that there was embezzlement of over $20 million by the Natick School Committee. That was back in 2013, I forget now. But anyhow, so the Natick School Committee excluded my child based on residency. My daughter, now 20 years old, has never graduated high school. She's been denied. Anyway, so I am now made it our mission to go around to every different district via emails and try to figure out how you do account, because what we have now learned is that Framingham and Natick cannot account for federal
Sure.
and state grants.
And what we do here is, we don't usually go on discussion, so you can talk, but we send it to the committee so you can have a thorough discussion.
Well, thank you. That is really what I am asking for, because I
Okay.
have at least over 25 questions.
Yeah, that'll be in committee then. You can
Okay,
do
so are you saying, am I?
that. You can finish your time if you'd
Oh.
like, then we'll send the item to committee.
You're going to send it to standing committee?
Yep.
Okay, well, then I can yield my time. I really appreciate it, because,
perfect.
we just care about transparency and accountability.
Okay.
And I've had nothing but a wonderful experience thus far dealing with the wonderful people here, your staff, and in Worcester.
Perfect.
Thank you
I'd like
very
to hear
much.
that. Thank you. So the motion is to send that to Finance and Operations for a discussion. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Okay, so we have, so public comment is closed. We did the petition prior to the superintendent's report. We'll go back to accept a donation amount of $350,000 from Gene Haas Foundation to the Worcester Technical High School and the Skyline Technical Funding for the facility improvements and the equipment purchases for the Advanced Manufacturing Program in exchange for signage and 15-year naming rights of the space within the school at the Gene Haas Center for Advanced Manufacturing. I know we have the principal here, Drew Weymouth, if you want to come up and
Do I speak from here?
no, you can come sit down here if you like. So, and Brian, I'm sorry, Brian Cummings too. And Brian, if you'd like to come up, my condolences for the city of Worcester for your loss this week too. Yeah, if you want to do a presentation on I was told that you'd like to present on how this arrived at, give us a history and tell us about the donation.
Thank you. Thank you for considering this item tonight. My name is Drew Weymouth. I'm the principal at Worcester Technical High School, and we'd like to give you a brief presentation on both the Haas automation and the Haas community, as well as the relationship that Worcester Tech and other schools across the nation have had with the Haas Foundation over the course of the last 24 years. So on the second slide, just want to briefly describe the different foundations and communities within the Haas community. First off, Haas Automation is the largest tool manufacturer in the Western world. It was founded in 1983 by Gene Haas. And then in 1999, Gene Haas felt that there was a necessary philanthropic component to build advanced manufacturing training and CNC training in the community to promote trained workforce for advanced manufacturing. Since 1999, the Haas Foundation has donated $175 million to training programs across the nation. Last year alone, it was $27 million, and Worcester Tech has been the recipient of $141,000 of that in the past 7 years. Around the same time, they discovered that, they didn't discover, but they acknowledged that money was not enough and they needed to bring the community of educators together, and they established the Haas Technical Educators Community. That was developed right here in Worcester in 2002 with Chris Brown as the first president of the Haas Educational Community. And that was jointly with a conglomerate of WPI, Worcester Tech, and QCC. So we have been partners with the Haas Technical Educators Council since its inception. And to talk a little bit more about the relationship between Haas and Worcester Tech, I'd like to turn it over to our Advanced Manufacturing Department Head, Brian Cummings.
Mr. Cummings,
Thank you, Mr. Weymouth.
can you pull that microphone right up to you?
Sure.
Thank you. As Principal Weymouth said, the first H-Tech community or council started with Chris Brown from WPI as the first president of that council. And that was to bring teachers nationwide together to develop best practices and share those ideas amongst schools. Started having first regional conferences, then national conferences. They hold one every year, and there's a president elected each year to that H-Tech Council. I served as president in 2022 and have been a high school representative for the council for the last approximately 10 years. Had a relationship with Haas personally since 2002 when we purchased our first Haas machines. This was a big movement for schools because of the size of their industry and how many machines were already out there in the field, and because they really wanted a partnership with schools, and they did that. So we started buying machines in 2002, and we've advanced the technology along over the years. I know every school committee member in here has toured my shop at one time or another and sees the advancement that is in there, and that couldn't happen without the partnership from Haas that we've had in the Gene Haas Foundation. It's helped to fund scholarships. It's helped to fund industry-recognized credentials and supplies, and to help train our students in strong budgetary ways. And they've recognized Worcester Technical High School as one of the top high schools in the nation. Just a little bit of background. Gene Haas Foundation sponsors FIRST Robotics. They're primary sponsor, and they also sponsor all the Skills USA national and regional competitions. So, so they approached us, and that was because of the long-term relationship in our community, being the only city or only community that has 3 H-Tech centers. Being Quinsig, being WPI, and being Worcester Tech. This was a place that they wanted to help to invest in. I had an image of moving the program because of space constraints, the quality of the program, the change in industry, how we've converted from really a shop to a lab type work environment. And I wanted that to reflect in our program, how it reflects in industry. And that's where the Gene Haas Foundation shines in supporting programs that they feel strongly about. And we made our proposal to them, and this is the largest grant that they provide to high schools, and we'd be the 5th high school in the nation to receive Gene Haas Foundation grant money for this. So they are offering us $350,000 for moving, construction, and updating the manufacturing facility to a laboratory to look more modern, and to give that image that we should be showing our students and to help our program grow to the next level. The proposal I know is attached. I think everybody has that. Maybe next slide. So if you could click on that first link, the image of manufacturing labs. Again, every one of you have been in my shop at one point. This is what our shop should look like, and this is what our shop will look like after these renovations are complete. Nice bright walls, nice lighting, colored floors, painted epoxy floors, and an atmosphere when kids come in, they're going to be wowed by that. And we really need students in this to fill this very high need industry in New England and in Central Mass. So that's what we want to bring our program to. That's what we need to bring it to, and these funds will help to do so. If you scroll down, I'm sorry, if you could go back for 1 second. I mentioned that we are the 5th high school in the nation to receive this naming rights offer. All the rest you'll see on that list are already named Gene Haas Center for Advanced Manufacturing through universities and colleges. And on that list, I hope to see Worcester Tech on there, as it would be the 5th high school. First in Massachusetts. And then the next link on that slide was a link to the proposal that we submitted to them. And there's a lot of the details. Happy to go through or answer any questions if that's what we do. But it gives the overall construction plan, it gives our vision, and it gives the new layout, and it supports where we want to bring the program to.
So we've had this relationship since 1999
We've
with WPI and Haas
yes.
and Quincy Community College and Worcester Technical High School. Well, even before the school was built.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
interesting. I've been in your tour. That's a whole game changer. Then I know how it's crowded in your space now, and
It is.
so okay. I think Member Novak had her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to say that I don't appreciate how this has been handled from the beginning. This was put on a consent agenda. We were given a half a page of backup. So all of this detail that's being referenced was actually not shared with the school committee, and it was put on a section of the agenda such that the assumption was that we were going to pass it without discussion. That's not only inappropriate, it's actually a violation of our policy, because this is a naming rights proposal. And I know that everybody wants to get themselves wrapped up in the money. This is a naming rights proposal. This is a question of what name is going to be on a section of one of our high schools. Let me just note, by the way, that when a policy is brought before the school committee, it actually ought to be given to us in the backup. For my colleagues who don't have it off the top of their head, that's section FF. And section FF for the Worcester Public Schools includes the language, first of all, that there's supposed to be a process for any naming, as we're seeing elsewhere on our agenda. But secondly, names and wording associated with school facilities shall be consistent with school district policies and promote messages aligned with the mission, vision, and goals of the school district. So I want to note something that, with all due respect to our daily, which I'm sure everyone saw today, that the main point here tonight is that this facility, as a condition of receiving this grant, would have to be named for Mr. Haas. So let's not be under any illusions that this is something that someone's doing out of the generosity of their heart or something of that nature. Because the thing that happens when you name a facility after someone is that it makes press. And when you make press, you actually change the Google alert and you change what happens when you search for someone's name. So just to remind everyone about the sequence of events that has happened over the past 2 decades with Mr. Haas, the first thing that happened was a violation of a patent law that happened back in 2000. He was fined $8.9 million for stealing somebody else's idea. We have a word for that in education. We call that plagiarism, and we punish our students for it. And when we punish our students for it, we expect them to take their punishment and then move forward having learned something. Contrary to that, what happened, and let me just note that I'm not making allegations here, this was proven in federal court. What Mr. Haas did is not take his punishment of his $8.9 million. He got angry at the federal judge, and he decided that what he was going to do was conspire with multiple other people to commit $30 million in federal tax fraud. That's, just to be clear, by the way, $30 million, you can sort of read that in a headline and maybe you pass it by. Let me note that that's more than double our Title I allotment. And Title I is federal money that we get. So consider that what he essentially did was he stole the equivalent of 2 years of our Title I allotment. He then served 2 years in federal prison and he paid a $70 million fine. And let me just note that I don't really appreciate the spin that came out of the paper today about whether or not people are supposed to wear sackcloth and ashes for the rest of their life. Because when Mr. Haas got out, he then resumed his lifestyle because he is a very wealthy man. And unlike a lot of other people we know, who after they get out of prison, after committing other kinds of federal violations, he had a place to live and he had a job to walk back into. Now, the question is, was the lesson actually learned? Well, I don't know, Mr. Chair, because the PBS NewsHour in March of this year found that he was violating federal sanctions against Russia, because one of the things that you can do with advanced manufacturing is you can use it to actually create weapons. And we, of course, as the United States, are not actually providing Russia with systems for the creation of weapons at this time. Of course, as we know, because it seems that administration felt it was necessary for them to share this with us, the Haas Manufacturing denied that allegation. When PBS NewsHour went back and looked at it again in August, what did they find? That was no longer coming directly from the Haas Manufacturing, but it seems that they're still managing to find their way there through a company that was created in China 2 weeks after PBS NewsHour went to press. That seems to me to be a pretty clear coincidence. So here's the deal, Mr. Chair. As a school committee member, as an educator, as a parent, as a member of this community, I think really hard about the names that we put on our buildings, about the examples that we put in front of our kids. We have somebody who committed what we would call plagiarism in schools, who rather than taking their punishment actually defrauded the federal government for millions and millions of dollars, and who appears to now be actually violating more federal laws as we actually speak. And what people want to do, what the proposal is tonight, is to put this man's name on our building for 15 years. I consider having a name on a building to be an honor. And I say that as someone whose name is on plaques in a couple of our buildings that are new. You have to earn that honor. You don't get to buy that honor. It would be a violation of our policy to move forward this evening, Mr. Chair, because it does not actually meet the terms of FF. Let me note that if the school committee wishes to move forward, that will take a 2/3 vote, because it takes a 2/3 vote to suspend a policy. Well, Mr. Chair, I'm genuinely offended that a condition of this donation is to put this man's name on the building. And frankly, every educator also likewise ought to be offended that this is an example that anyone wants to put in front of our children. Mr. Chair, I hope that our honor cannot be bought, and I'm making a motion to file.
I'm just curious, what is the naming? Is it in front of the building we're going to put this on? Like Worcester Technical High School on the building, or is it on the doorway? So I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm
Cummings.
sorry. Yeah. Be on the entryway to the shop only.
Okay. So, you want to speak? Or? Sure. Okay. Member Mailman?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks also to Tracy to Member Novick for alerting us to the situation here. These jobs, there are two. So here's how I'm looking at this man's criminal background, okay? He was charged, he was convicted, he paid a price, and these new charges, there's nothing, I don't think he's been charged or arrested or that the company has been. It doesn't seem to me, and I think that was one of the statements. So I certainly don't feel knowledgeable enough to tag that to someone afterwards. My feeling is my thought is that because I am in favor of this is really important training, it's really important equipment. $350,000 doesn't drop out of a tree every so often. Whether we like it or not, somebody that makes a donation, they can say whatever they want. We didn't ask for a naming right. That was their requirement. So it's really on us. Do we want to put this person's name on the door of the shop? And it's not this person. It is the foundation that has worked with a bunch of different organizations across the country in this industry, which is incredibly needed jobs in Massachusetts. We've noted that from Mass Hire, from all kinds of other places. So I would make the case that we should accept this donation. Obviously, we're going to need a 2/3 vote. So we'll see what happens. But I think that I'm in favor of if something comes of these arms charges, which are horrendous and horrible, I would say that we would then remove the name tag. So regardless of what we're signing up for now, those would be federal charges, blah, blah, blah. That would be my position. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Hang on one second. Okay, yes. Member Kamara had up first, then Member Johnson, then Member Clancy.
Thank you so much to the chair. So I just want to ask some questions, and I want to thank my member for such detailed information that we just got here, and for the TNG for exploring further contents around this topic. I want to ask the question. You all have many, many years of work in vocational, you name it. It'll be remiss of us if you guys brought this grant to us without vetting such grant against the person or what we're hearing. And I just also learned from your presentation that this individual also has a relationship with WPI, so it seems that that partnership is still within intact, correct? Okay, so my question to you, were there a vetting process? How do you feel in terms of the nature of this? Because I kind of want to understand more about what the administration thinks from the people who has actually done the work and doing the work. So.
Principal Weymouth.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. Haas machines are found throughout our entire shop. They are the industry gold standard in North America. And therefore, when the Gene Haas Foundation, I'd like to kind of reiterate Member Mailman's point that it's not about the individual, it's about the foundation. The foundation is run by separate individuals. And when the foundation came to us with an opportunity to not only upgrade our lab, but to use the funds for construction and reimagining what advanced manufacturing should and could look like at this day and age, bringing it from the factory image to laboratory image, we wanted to bring that to you for consideration.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Johnson?
Thank you, through the chair to the administration. So again, to piggyback on what Member Camaro was saying, I think this question probably needs to go to Superintendent Monterez. In light of having that information and learning of this information, the administration brought this forward on behalf of Worcester Tech and whatever for a reason. And you guys felt comfortable enough in doing so. Am I correct? Can you just explain to me what makes you feel comfortable in bringing this forward?
Madam Superintendent?
Through the chair. So very much in alignment with what Principal Weymouth just shared, we want to keep growing Worcester Tech to be a true model technical high school throughout the nation. $350,000 in order to do that in one classroom setting, because that's what we're talking about, is quite an investment that we would not be able to do as a district for one classroom. That would then mean there's a lot of money, or there's a lot that we wouldn't be doing for, on a broader scale, for more children. So a donation of this size is very important. We very much also want to honor what the school is looking for in terms of growth and opportunity in alignment with the careers that are out there for our future. We don't want to be using equipment for our youth, telling them that we're preparing them for the future when we know that it's not the future-ready work or equipment that they need. We did do the investigation or the research on this individual, and it is a very difficult place to be when you think about, very much thinking about what Member Novick shared. There's been some bad decisions made by this individual who has paid the consequences. There might be some additional ones, as we've heard, but we don't want to be the judge and jury of that. And we also want to model this idea that when you make poor decisions, because we all make them, and we pay our consequences, then we want to continue to have opportunities in life. So it's not an easy decision, but the role of myself as the superintendent is to think about what we want for our children on a broader scope. And I believe that this is in the best interest of the children at Worcester Tech and for Worcester Public Schools.
Thank you. My next question is through the chair to Superintendent Monterez, which you may not know this answer because you haven't been here long enough. I know Mr. Allen's not here, and he's been here a long time. He may not know the answer to this either. I'm not sure if Assistant Superintendent Dr. Morse has this answer. Has a grant or a donation like this ever come across to the Worcester Public Schools that is tied to naming rights in the past that we're aware of? If anyone could answer that question.
Mr. Weymouth?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. In answer just specifically to Worcester Tech, Coughlin Construction Academy is named after Coughlin Electric. The Alden Trust made a substantial donation when we came into the new building in 2006. We have the Alden Engineering Academy. Red Ken was initial donor for opening our cosmetology shop. In our IT shop, it was Cisco and Dell that made a substantial donation upon moving into the new building in 2006. And so all of those were naming rights associated with either our shops or our academies. I don't know beyond Worcester Tech, but those are some examples.
No, that's pretty good. In regards to that, are there signs in the building that highlight those shops?
Yes, and Red Ken has expired, and so there are no signs any longer for Red Ken.
Okay, thank you. My next question is through the chair to the administration. In regards to the naming rights, in regards to the concerns that there may be something that comes up in the future, legally, where are we at in regards if something were to come up or happen in regards to removing those naming rights out of our school within the 15 years?
Madam Superintendent?
Through the chair, I don't think I don't want to give a definitive, for sure we can remove it. What we can do, though, is work specifically with the foundation and do something in that realm around that, especially if there's legalities. I would want to check with our city solicitor. I can't imagine, though, that if there's a criminal act that then is found guilty, that we would still have to have the naming rights there. I want to say that we would be able to remove that, but I don't want to give a definitive without having conferred with the city solicitor on that.
Thank you. And my next question is to go back to what my colleague, Member O'Connell-Novick, talked about in regards to the policy, in regards to naming rights. Are we in violation of just approving this today? If we were to do that and just name it, are we in violation of the rules?
Yes, my understanding the rule is that we should have a public hearing. So I think anytime there's a naming right, you need a separate meeting on that, except from the school committee meeting. So, and the alternative would be to suspend the rules tonight and just pass it and not have that special meeting. Or we can send it to, I guess it would go to, I think it would go to governance, so, and for a meeting.
Okay.
If you wanted to follow the rules of the council, you can have a motion to refer to, for a special meeting on this item.
So what's the recommendation today? Do we know? Is the
Right now we
recommendation to
have-
suspend the rules and?
Nobody has made a motion on that yet. Right now, we have two motions. One is to accept this. In order to do that, we'd have to suspend the rules, correct? And the second motion, according to Rule 15, is to file.
Okay. Okay. So I've thought about this over the last few days in regards to this. And again, I'm all for second chances, if you would say. People make mistakes, pay their debt to society or whatever. We deal with this all the time, right? We have people who get arrested, charged, do time. Sometimes they get out, they can't get a job or whatever. I understand that. I'm just having a hard time with myself ethically whether or not this is the right call for our school. And I know the benefits of this. I'm just trying to weigh, honestly, within myself on whether or not this is the right thing to do. But I thank you guys for answering the questions that I put forth, and we'll see what happens here. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Member Clancy?
Thank you. So I am also in a little bit of a situation here. I would like to see if we could get an opinion on if there was anything further to come, if the name does come off of the program, if that is so what we choose to do. I do have an issue, though, because about 4 months ago, I brought to the school committee to have a program named after a educator in the Worcester Public Schools for over 46 years. And the same thing came up, and Ms. Novick, at that point, referred to the policy and our naming policy. And we're going through that process with somebody else, and I feel that if someone wrote a check right now, that we could get his name on a program, and I don't agree with that. So I don't know how we move forward, but I do have an issue with the naming rights just being bought. Thank you.
Okay, Member McCullough?
Thank you, and certainly I appreciate all of the opinions and information being shared tonight, because certainly, as the superintendent said, we do want to do what's best for our kids in terms of the opportunities that we're providing with them. And when we talk about the future-ready spaces and the actual manufacturing equipment that they need to be ready for their future careers, it's a very important decision, and certainly not one we can really take lightly in this moment. My question through the chair would be, if there, were the motion to suspend the rules to then waive or take out of consideration FF tonight to then move forward with approval, could we make a stipulation that the approval is only going to happen if we know we can remove the naming rights, not just get a legal opinion. I mean, I think we need to get the legal opinion, but could we do something like that, or is that procedurally not?
We probably could do that, but my suggestion would be refer it to committee like we're supposed to do, like, so people would know this is the procedure of the school committee. And if there's, then we can have a discussion there on those items.
Thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Jim.
Thank you.
Member Kamara.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to also piggyback off of Member Clancy here, because I was also at one of the meetings with the La Familia and Chandler Magnet, and also brought the conversation about both parties, both schools in one, naming the school. So I'm actually going to tag myself onto that. Secondly, I also want to hear from the students, because we have a lot of variety of our different schools here present and brilliant minds. And so like I would love to hear from possibly every one of you if you can, or some of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome on that.
Hello, my name is Anhar, and I was just thinking about all of this. I do think that this is a great opportunity, and of course it'd be a tremendous help getting jobs and everything. However, the more I think about it, it does leave a distaste in my mouth. And to think that if anything were to happen and we could take down the name, if that were to happen, it may be a good thing to take down the name because we'd still have all the resources, but I feel like it would just be horrible press to have this go down, to have this person who donated so much money and that we accepted to put their name on it, have a scandal go on, and then just be ripped off. I feel it just shows that we don't really value the honor that Tracy did say goes with being named.
Thank you. Hang on 1 second. Mr. Sutton?
Through the chair, I think that morally, this is very much wrong, but for Worcester Tech itself, this is a huge, huge thing. This opens up so many different opportunities. You know, we have programs in Worcester that obviously have, you know, company names on it and brand names. Like at Burnco, we have the Hanover Academy. You know, you guys obviously have all your shops that are sponsored. But morally, I don't think that as a city and as a community, we can really accept this offer, because if there is a man who is selling weapons to a foreign country who is attacking an ally, I don't think we can back that. Even if the accusations are false somehow, there's too much evidence from member Novick brought up, you know, to stir us away from this. We need to. It's an amazing offer, and it would do so much for the students, but I think that until we're clear of all accusations from them, we should not accept.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. And hang on. Bata, Ms. Bata.
Hi. Through the chair. As a student of Worcester Technical High School, I can personally say that advanced manufacturing has never been the shop with the most support and the most, there is certain shops in our school that do gain the most interest from parents and students and is often talked about, and we consider them first choice shops, and I feel advanced manufacturing has never really been one of those. So if this could go through and if we could get this donation without having such a negative name attached, it would be the ideal situation. But I feel that there really is, like previously it has been said, it's hard to put such a horrible, someone with such horrible accusations on a school that talks about working and talks about being the best person you can. That's all our school really promotes, and that's all Worcester Public Schools really promotes. So if we could find somewhere in the middle where if this person was convicted of these charges, then certain things could be reversed. If not, it is a benefit for advanced manufacturing, but I'm not sure how much it'd be a benefit for Worcester Tech as a whole. That's all.
Thank you. Sally, let's go to, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Corsa.
Through the chair, I just want to add on to basically what Mary Jane was implying about the whole naming situation. Sorry. I believe that like names hold history in a way. So I just want to say my piece and talk to you guys about whether is that like something that you would want for Worcester Technical High School in the long term? Because not having someone with, as I like to say, somebody with such background in a way, even though like they were able to serve their time and deal with the consequences. But I just personally believe that this is something long-term that we need to think about, whether or not that we want to have this as a part of our history. Well, Worcester Tech's history, as I should say. That's just what I have to add. That's just my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duad? Yep.
Just to add on to the statements that I made before, I do believe that if this does even go through, if somehow these accusations do become common knowledge, that some students would have a bad taste in their mouth and would rather go to a different shop. And 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if these accusations come to light and are actually true and he gets charged with them, I feel like, me personally, I wouldn't associate myself with someone who did that. And even if we do remove the name, his name would be stained on the shop, and I think it might harm the shop if we do end up putting his name on there. And it's just something that I would assume some students, including myself, would not be comfortable with.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Williams, you had mentioned earlier that Mr. Haas is separate from the foundation. There's other people that run the foundation. Is that true, or? I thought you said there's other people that.
Yes, Mr. Haas is not running the foundation. It's a separate group running the foundation. However, the association between the two is still very clear, and the funding for the foundation comes from Haas Automation. So,
okay. So it's clear to me that some people are against this. Some people like to see if we could put something in there to reverse it. I mean, to reverse it if something should happen in the future. So according to our rules, we can refer it to committee. So that would be the first vote. Then the second vote, if that fails, would be the file. Then the third vote, if that fails, I guess would take the vote, I guess. And Member McCullough?
Thank you. Just a clarifying question on this. Based on which committee would this go to?
I was thinking governance, but.
Well, that's what I was wondering. So, I mean, that would make for the clarity around it.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
So we can answer some. Mr. Cummings? You can go ahead.
Pardon me. Thank you very much. I'd like to just add a little bit, and I just want to clarify to everyone very respectfully, there's only been one charge, and there's been one conviction, and there's been one price paid, and that price was twice the amount that was mentioned in earlier comments. There are no other charges against Gene Haas or Haas Automation. There was an allegation by one news reporter that I feel really had no legs, because it would have been picked up by many more news people if it had any truth to it. One of the things that was not done in this article was explain how the dealership network works for Haas Automation. Haas didn't get to be the largest CNC tool manufacturer by having one salesman that goes around to all these shops and sells machines. They have nationwide and they have worldwide distributorships for these machines. And what was not mentioned was the dealerships that did sell machines to countries that were not in favor of Haas's position. Haas immediately ceased operations with those dealers. They have no control over who those dealers sell machines to, and that too was left out of the context of this. And it's been noted on multiple occasions in multiple articles in response to this one PBS allegation that Haas wants to emphatically state that any that any suggestion that Haas is somehow involved in or complicit with any ongoing sales to Russia or Russian defense industry are absolutely and demonstrably false. And I really think, given the history that the Gene Haas Foundation has had for schools, I think it's really an insult to the philanthropic efforts that I think he deserves to be able to continue to do. I think he's paid his price, and I think as we all agree, and with our students, that people deserve a second chance, and that was a long time ago.
Thank you. Ms. Novick? Member Novick?
Mr. Chair, I didn't intend to speak again, but I do just want to correct the record. There has not only been one charge. We remember, please, that this all started in 2000 with Mr. Haas being fined $8.9 million for committing a federal offense in terms of violating a patent, which is stealing someone else's idea. So that was then what kicked off the tax fraud campaign. And I do just want to note something. There's a difference between paying your price and being able to go forward and being honored by having a section of a building named after you and being held up as what we say in the policy as an exemplar for our students. Those are not the same things. I'm not saying he needs to pay more than that. I'm saying that we don't put his name on the building. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so my motion will be sent to committee for discussion, and I'm going to say something, but I forget. I lost my train of thought. But so I was just curious. Like, you have Haas machines right now in your building, right? And most of the technical high schools, I just read somewhere, maybe it was in the paper, where it had a bunch of technical high schools throughout central Massachusetts or throughout the country that use Haas machines.
Yes, I don't know a high school, a technical high school in Massachusetts, and I serve as the executive director of Massachusetts Career and Technical Educators, and I visit many schools and speak with many of my colleagues and peers, and I don't know of any machine shop program or advanced manufacturing program that does not have Haas equipment in it. Because of what they've done as far as in-kind grants, as far as educational discounts for equipment, and again, as far as their commitment to education. The other concern that I have is if we want to frame this person as such a miserable person and take his name, which would not be his name, it would be the foundation, off of the programs, then I think that also means removing all the Haas machines from all the technical programs throughout the state, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of machines. So that's another context to look at this in, because we have been a Haas facility and we have had Haas machines, as have all the other technical schools for many, many years since they started selling to education. So I think we'd have to take those machines out of the shop if that's such a strong feeling. And I think if there's a couple $1 million to go around, we could probably do that. But
And I understand the association between Mr. Haas and the foundation. This is done by the foundation. The foundation's name would be on the hallway, right? In the hallway. Okay. And okay. And I'm just curious. I know that what was the $350,000 going towards? I know what you said, the machines and also some renovation.
Great question, thank you. We're not allowed to purchase capital equipment with those funds because that would be like, for obvious reasons, we can't buy Haas machines with Haas donated funds. What they're doing is they're supporting the construction and renovation project.
Okay.
And the proposal that was given to them for what we needed to do as far as the epoxy flooring, the lighting, the walls, the color schemes, and what makes it inviting and exciting to students to go into, that's what they're helping to support. And that's because we do have the equipment already.
Okay.
As all of you have seen.
So the motion is referred to committee, to governance. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
No.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Millman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
No.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Can we move on? No? Member Kamara, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I just want to personally thank all of you for this research that you've done, and the fact that we have such dedicated staff to bring such an opportunity to our district. And the idea is that hopefully, many of our high schools, I think they're following suit, but they will see such work that is being done at Worcester Technical High School and, want to copy what is going on. And so I just want to thank you guys for your hard work, because this is not an easy work. I will stop my propaganda there. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Weymouth, thank you, and thank you, Brian. If people don't mind, if we go to, we have some, I think, administrators here on 3-328, which is Eleni Drozaitis, to request school committee to confer the high school diploma on her father, George Drozaitis, during Memorial High School class of 1985. That's from the administration. And we have people here for that tonight? I'm sorry. Good thing that was pointed out to me, otherwise you would have been here for another hour or two. So, do you want to speak on that? Costa, is that you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting big. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it. First and foremost, on behalf of my sister and I, we want to thank every single one of you for giving us the opportunity to speak on a matter that's important to us. So my name is Costa Drasitas. This is my sister Eleni here. And the reason we're here today is because we're both graduating in the spring. I'll be getting my MBA from Anna Maria, and she'll be getting her undergrad from Assumption University on health science. And she came up with this really good idea to give us like a gift to our parents, more specifically for our father. So without further ado, I'll have her explain it.
Just making sure this works. Okay, so I have an internship at Eisenberg Assisted Living, and I'm on the keepsake floor, which is like a floor dedicated to people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And I was recently talking about this story about my dad with one of the residents who actually had a similar story. So it just kind of inspired me to go forward with this. And I just feel like a lot of people would benefit, and just take as much as you can with your education, because I feel like a lot of people don't have the opportunity to continue their education. So my father's name is George Drasitas, and he attended Doherty Memorial High and would have been the class of 1985. But in 1984, my grandparents, who came from Greece when my dad was only 8, they lived out the American dream of starting their own business from scratch. So it's soon to be Village House of Pizza, going on almost 40 years now. My dad at 16 had taken most of the responsibilities for that. There was a language barrier between my grandparents, so he was basically doing the phone calls, taking the bills, talking to customers, all of that stuff. So he started working 12 to 14-hour shifts, which he still does to this day. I don't know how he does it, but this led him to having to leave his high school 2 months before graduating. To this day, it still sits with him that he never fully got to complete his high school degree, and it's always why he pushed me and my brother to finish our education, get the most out of it. So with his business being as successful as it is today, we would love to show him how much his hard work and dedication is appreciated. And we've grown to see the sacrifices, the struggles, and everything that he's done for us, so I just figured this would be the best gift for him, just to give it to us. And we've been working there since we were 16, so we kind of got to see it all happen and all unfold growing up. And we both graduate in May, so I feel like that would be a good time, and just giving it to him would just, with your help obviously, would be the best thing ever, and we feel really passionate about it. And I think it would be a good feeling to not only feel the achievement that he got both of his kids through college and much more than that, as well as the feeling for himself. So With that being said, whether it's 2 months or 38 years, the wait would be worth it, and we would love to share the success together as a family. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you for being here. Costa, good to
Thank
see you
you.
again. The Village Pizza does make good pizza.
If you guys are ever hungry.
And I think is it Uxbridge or is
Yeah,
it?
it's right next to Weissen Creamery.
Yep.
Yeah.
And tell your father I said hi and good to see you. And maybe we can do it at the Dory High School graduation. So
Yeah.
that'd be nice. And okay, so we need a motion to approve and roll call.
Member Clancy.
Yes.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Kamara.
Yes.
Member Mailman.
Yes.
Member McCullough.
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick.
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Member Novick?
Yeah, I just want to ask in relationship to this, because we've gotten these in the past. Do we have any kind of, I meant to ask this and I'll just vote for it, but is there a process? Do we have anything on this?
It usually goes to the superintendent and they make I forget what the word is, but the diploma. It's honorary diploma, yeah.
But I meant before it gets to us in the first place.
Not sure of the answer to that.
And I just am wondering if we should consider that. I won't make a motion, but I'll just sort of throw that out there to administration as to should we consider if there should be a something.
Oh, like go into a committee first, you mean? Something
Well,
like that.
I don't know that it needs to go to a committee, but I just wonder about,
When the past has come through the school committee and we've sent it to the
well, no,
administration.
only, and true, legally only we can grant a diploma. So no argument there. I didn't know if we had a process. I just wanted to raise the question. Thank you.
Okay, so we approve this, and no second motion will be to send it to, I think it's already been said, but we already passed this, so
Yes,
we'll go to the superintendent.
7-0.
So it doesn't get lost. So make sure it stays on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to the agenda. We are in the held items. Okay, Council Member Mailman was going to hold it until after the superintendent's report on GB 3225. We go to Ms. McCullough to request administration review and report back at the next committee meeting on the policy regarding alcohol usage in the Worcester Public School buildings for special events with appropriate city licensure approval. Ms. McCullough?
Thank you so much. And this item was filed in relation to a request from one organization, but it was something that I had been asked about before and had thought about before myself, and I was curious for administration to give us an opinion and any legal information that they have around this policy. It is a school committee policy, I believe. It is not necessarily a law, perhaps, but I'm just looking for administration to give us any feedback on this and an opinion regarding this for, specific events with very specific parameters.
Madam Superintendent?
Yeah, through the chair. So did get a legal opinion from the city solicitor regarding this request. So I'll go through the process and then I'll give the recommendation. There is a Mass General Law, Section 272, Part 4A, I think it's called, which it talks about. It makes it illegal for any selling, delivering, or possessing of alcoholic beverages in public school buildings, or any premise used for public school purposes. And then there's also an exemption that allows the school committee to authorize a public or non-profit organization to use the building during non-school hours to possess or sell alcoholic beverages. Whoever is requesting this has to be, provided the nonprofit organization is properly licensed, and the licensing happens through the Worcester License Commission. And so then what the licensing would look like is to appoint a responsibility manager, I believe it's called. Yes, responsible manager, who would then get the license through the License Commission. The commission must hold a public hearing. If granted, they must have a served trainer to serve the liquor. The liquor must be purchased from a licensed wholesaler, and the licensing commission might offer or add additional conditions. So it's possible through the licensing commission. The city solicitor also recommended that Worcester Public Schools be relieved of any liability and that there's a hold harmless clause in the facilities agreement, which we, I believe, already have in place. Our current facilities use agreement, which it's my understanding this was previously approved by the school committee, outlines on step number 18 that the using organization shall not permit any intoxicating liquor or other controlled substances to be in or upon the premises. So that's what's in the existing policy and procedure. If the committee wants to make authorize this exemption, then my recommendation is that we make the change to the actual procedure and policy that we already have so that there's consistency. The city solicitor did point out that we would want to give consideration to, once you approve one group, then others might follow, and so it would be just really important for the consistency of process and that there's not any kind of favoritism that goes on. So my recommendation is that there is a change to the actual facilities use if the committee so decides to do this exemption. And I kind of feel like there's another piece which is similar in my mind to our previous conversation about this donation, and it's this idea about, and it's more of a moral thing, about why schools exist. And as an educator, it's my belief that schools exist for children first and foremost. Adults work there. Adults might visit there, but they're there for children. And it happens to be really the only place in the United States that this building is designed and put together, and the purpose of it is for children. And so I'm struggling with the idea of having something that is not available to children, intentionally so, meaning alcohol, on a school campus, even though I know children won't be there. So it's very much more of a moral thing that I would like the committee to consider. I do recommend that this gets one more thing to go to governance, or maybe, no, it's a policy, so it would go to a policy change to go to governance. And again, it's allowable by law, there's an exemption. I would just want that in the actual facilities agreement, and while we're doing that, we could also add the Massachusetts Association School Committee coding to this policy, because we don't currently have that on the agreement. And I just want to close by saying schools were built for children, and I understand the desire of, there's a kind of nostalgic piece to this with the request for the use of one of our schools. As a superintendent, I would prefer that we keep the children's space for children. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is to send to governance. Prior to doing so, we have Ms. Novick, Member Novick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to, first of all, honor the superintendent's recommendation there, which is to keep the policy as it is, which would make a motion to file. So I will make that motion to file. I would say that it isn't, the one thing I would add to what Dr. Monares just said is that this isn't actually only a moral thing. It's two other things. It's what our constitutional obligation is as an educational institution, which is, yes, to the children, but also the Constitution actually goes into a lot of description of what it is that we're supposed to be modeling for our children. You didn't get that in the previous deliberation. I could have given it to you because honesty is included, but I'll note this, that one of the things that is very strongly stressed in the statewide health standards that we teach in, among other things, the buildings that we're about to talk about, is that you don't actually need to have alcohol to have a good time. And I think that it's rather hypocritical of us as a school committee to be teaching that to our children during the school day, and then having adults at night not able to have a festivity without actually having access to alcohol. There is certainly, as we've known in the past, plenty of opportunity for adults to come have nostalgic tours. We are more than happy to host that. And there are plenty of other facilities that are not educational institutions in which one can be served alcohol. So I'm going to make a motion to file, Mr. Chair. I do not think that this is something that we should be considering a governance, and I want to honor the superintendent's recommendation and are keeping the facilities use policy as it is. I think it's that way for a reason.
So one way is to say that we can, first motion was referred to committee, I think was asked to go to governance. Second, if that fails, it would go, then we'd take a motion to file. Member Millman?
Maybe I'm confusing, Mike. Doesn't file take precedence?
No.
Okay.
The motion to refer.
Motion to refer takes precedence.
Thank you.
And I think it's maybe fair to some of the people that asked for this, be at least, if we're going to file this, eventually we hear the reasons why in the committee. So, so we'll send that to committee. Motion is to refer. Roll call. Member Kamara?
Thank you. I just want to understand it. So did the superintendent say that we should send this to governance or what?
The superintendent said, I don't want to speak for you, but said two things. If you're going to, well, it's not really superintendent's rule, but it's our rule. If you're going to change the policy, it needs to go to governance. Second thing, superintendent said, well, she's not in favor of it, so.
So that's potentially filed this?
Yeah. Correct.
Yes.
Because, okay, so I just heard two things. I heard that if it goes to governance, it could get changed in governance. If it goes to, if it's filed, it's filed.
Correct.
Then the policy stays the same.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
I just thought it would be fair to have some of the people that come in at least listen to why some of our concerns are. That's all, for transparency's sake. So, so the motion is to refer. First motion, I'm sorry, is to refer to governance. If that fails, then we have a motion to file. Member Johnson?
Because now I think I'm confused. So it's going, we're looking for it to go to governance to look at changing the policy, or to just have people come in and
Both.
hear why we
Both. Well, it depends what the committee does. You could recommend to file in committee, or I could recommend to go forth. Okay. So the first motion is to send to committee. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
No.
Member Kamara?
No.
Member Mailman?
No.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
No.
And Mayor Petty?
I guess yes, but that fails. So the motion is to file. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
No.
I'm sorry, did you say no? I'm sorry, yes, thank you. Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes to file.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
No.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
No. Okay, so that is filed? Okay. Sorry, I had the microphone off.
The item before that, Mr. Mayor?
We are on, no, we're going to be on Superintendent's Report, item 3-15, From Here to Anywhere, Together, Student Academic Achievement, Part 2.
Through the chair. So as Drs. Morris and Andrade come to the front to do the presentation, as you'll recall, the previous school committee, we did an overview of the student academic achievement, and that it was very much an aggregate of how our schools are doing, our students are doing. Tonight's is part 2, where we're going to break it down by student groups, as well as program, and then bring back additional information that the committee had requested. As you listen, committee, I want you to not only pay attention to the groups or students that have need, but also where there's opportunities and highlights and strengths, because that gives us a chance for, or it shines a light on where we need to dig deeper into. So I want to thank Dr. Morris and Dr. Andrade for your attention and diligence in this, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Morris.
Thank you, and through the chair, this evening, as Dr. Monara said, Dr. Andrade and I are going to present to you part 2 of the MCAS and accountability data presentation. As mentioned, this presentation will dive in a little bit deeper into subgroup data and accountability data regarding our most recent MCAS administration last year, school year 22-23. You will not only hear about the data, but some important next steps that will be taken to address some of these specific needs. And finally, MCAS is one measure, it's one moment in time. However, it's an important measure in which we use data to plan for our district's improvement efforts. So tonight, we hope that we're able to dig into some specific subgroup data that shed some light on the achievement of our district. So our first goal that we talked about last week was, it's an important goal. It's labeled as our student goal, but again, just to remind you that what this goal means is we're going to be working collectively with all of our leaders. We're going to be using multiple forms of data, not only MCAS, but walkthrough data, qualitative data, quantitative data, to develop and respond to the school and student needs. And we will focus with an intentional approach to some of our more historically underserved students, but again, to all students. We believe that by building capacity, valuing the knowledge that students bring and educators bring to the classroom, and authentically engage with everyone, we can improve our third grade reading scores, and we're going to be measuring that by how we performed at the end of last year to the end of this year. We also plan to improve the percentage of students who self-report that they're more engaged in school, and also to increase the number of formally limited English proficient students so that we're able to improve those outcomes. Impact evidence, we talked a little bit about this last time we met. We really want to work on our bottom 20% of our schools to ensure that we give them the supports that they need so that we're able to help bring them forward and improve their percentile ranking over the course of, as we measure this year to next year. Also, product evidence. We know that in order to provide a system in which we use multiple sources of evidence, we have to be able to guide our districts. So we will be developing a systematic data literacy guidebook and also work really closely with our multilingual director and her team in order to create a multilingual education operating manual, a place and a way for all of our multilingual educators and all of our educators to have the tools and understanding of the intricate work that is required to be an effective educator for our multilingual students. So I'm going to turn the next slide over to, in the rest of the presentation, until the end, to Dr. Andrade.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. Just a reminder, in part 1, we review the goal, GLOws and GROWs. We looked at high-level results from the accountability determinations. We looked at MCAS results from an overall perspective. Today in part 2, we're going to be looking at a couple of the GROWs. Those are the performance gaps for certain subgroups, as well as progress towards meeting targets for English language proficiency. We're also going to spend a little bit of time looking at some accountability indicators that we did not cover last time. Reminder that this year, well, the 23 school year, was the first full accountability determinations since COVID. 2022 was used since 2019, but 2022 was used as a baseline. So when we're looking at the results from the accountability system, they reflect data from 23 school year, with 2022 school year being the baseline. We'll be looking at student growth, ELA and math. From the MCAS, we'll be looking at chronic absenteeism rates, advanced coursework completion, high school completion, which includes the 4-year graduation rate, extended engagement rate, and annual dropout rate. We'll also look at progress towards English language proficiency, which is assessed on the Access for ELS assessment. We're going to begin with growth. Just a couple slides here. ELA is on the left, and math is on the right. This is our student growth measures that the state uses, something called a student growth percentile. Basically, They look at students in the current year. They look at how they performed the prior year. So students who scored the same way the prior year are compared and ranked against each other's performance on the current year. And based on that ranking, it's determined what your student growth percentile is. For the state, the student growth percentile is 50. That's the black line that goes right across at the 50 mark. So that's basically dead center for the state. And so when you're looking at this, we're seeing some point differences between Worcester Public Schools and the state. It's broken up by grades 3 to 8 and by grade 10. For the most part, you can see that for the grades 3 to 8, that it's been pretty close to the state average and been pretty steady for the past 4 administrations that are shown here. For the high school, we're seeing a declining pattern from 2018 through 2022, but there was an uptick in 23, so we're 5 points off of the state, but it closed in the past school year. Next slide is on chronic absenteeism. The state measures chronic absenteeism as a student missing 10% or more of the days enrolled. They also only include students who have been enrolled for at least 20 days. In looking at these rates, you can see that in 23, our rate was lower than in 22. This is both true for the state as well as for Worcester Public Schools. But you'll also notice that we have here some of the rates going back pre-pandemic. You can see what the chronic absence rate was before then. The rates are higher than they were back in 17, 18, and 19. Another accountability indicator is advanced coursework completion. This indicator reflects 11th and 12th grade students who achieve a passing score in at least one advanced course. And that can include things such as AP, Chapter 74 programs, Project Lead the Way, and dual enrollment. So you can see here that the state's been pretty steady since 17. We have dipped since following or coming back from COVID in 22, but then in 23 we saw roughly a 3-point rebound. On this slide, this is the high school completion indicators. There are 3 of them. We have 4-year graduation rate, which is in the top left-hand corner. You can see that the state and Worcester have pretty much held steady since the graduating cohort of 2020. We've been roughly around 87%, 88%. The graduation rate for students graduating in 22, 87.7%. Please remember that for accountability purposes, the graduation cohort is a year removed. So the students who graduated just this past year in 23 will show up in next year's accountability system. So in terms of the 5-year extended engagement rate, that's the bottom left-hand corner. Same basic pattern as the 4-year graduation rate. Things have been holding steady for us and for the state. Not a whole lot of change. For the annual dropout rate, which is on the right-hand side, you'll notice that our rate did increase from 21 to 22. It was a point. It also increased for the state. Took a further look and at student groups, and the rate was pretty consistent across all student groups. So we saw a point increase there. On this slide, we have a comparison of our male and female students. These are students who are meeting or exceeding expectations on the MCAS. ELA is at the top, math is at the bottom. This is broken out over a number of years, and it shows males and females, grades 3 to 8, and then grade 10. For ELA, we see a higher percentage of female students meeting or exceeding expectations. This is across tested years and grades. This higher rate of meeting and exceeding actually carries through all of our racial groups across the district. In mathematics, male and female students have performed relatively the same since 2019. For grades 3 and 8, you can see that there's a 4-point difference with a higher percentage of males meeting or exceeding in the most recent year, and otherwise it's been pretty consistent. You can see that for grade 10, male-female is again on the bottom. In 22, there was a 4-point difference, but that came back to a 1-point difference and pretty close. So with a couple of exceptions, on math, males and females are relatively performing at the same levels. On this slide, we have a GROW. Ties back to the earlier slide. This is for Hispanic and Latino students as a group, looking at meeting and exceeding expectations. If looking at the student group, we can see that they are relatively unchanged in performance across all grades and tested subjects. Just to note, grades 3 to 8 is at the top half, grade 10 is the bottom. You can see Hispanic, Latino, and then the district, and then it's diced by ELA, math, and science. So you get a picture of all the MCAS tests in one snapshot. The area of strongest performance for our Hispanic Latino students is in ELA in grade 10. It is also the area where performance is held steady for this group of students. And if you notice for the district, you can see that it had declined. We talked about this at the last presentation of part 1. It's declined from SY 21 to 22 to 23, but the Hispanic Latino group has actually held steady and has not mirrored the district. For our students with disabilities, again, same layout, 3 to 8 on top, 10 on the bottom, and then ELA, math, and science. For our students with disabilities, we're relatively unchanged in performance across grades and tested subjects with one exception. While overall percentages of meeting and exceeding expectations are low, in grades 3 to 8 for math, this is top middle, top middle, there's a modest increase since school year 21 in performance. Again, I know it's the rates are relatively low, but we do see a pattern of increasing performance for math and students with disabilities. For our English language learners, relatively unchanged performance across grades and test subjects with one exception, and this is similar to students with disabilities. We can see that in grades 3 to 8 again. For math, there's a modest increase in SY21, since SY21 in performance on our math. All right, I'm going to transition a little bit to English language learners. On this slide is two tables. The top one is looking at access for ELS and who's participated in it. We've had 7,000 students last year take the Access for ELS test. These are our ELS students who are participating in this exam. It's in January and February, and it is K to 12. Most of our students that you can see here, 2,444, fall into the level 3, which is developing. And then if you look at the bottom left-hand table, this now shows those English proficiency levels 1 through 6, but only shows the count of students who took the ELA or the math MCAS. So roughly just under half of our students who take Access for ELS also took the MCAS. So 7,000 took Access, 3,144 took ELA, 3,126 took the math. So on this slide, this now is looking at those 3,000 plus students who had both an Access score and a MCAS score. And this graph is similar to one we presented last year. And so in looking at this graph, this for our ELS again who participate in Access and MCAS, we can see that the higher the English proficiency level, the larger the percentage of ELS students who are scoring partially, meeting, or exceeding expectations. This is true for ELA on the top and for math on the bottom. It's around EPL 3 when students are supposed to possess enough English language proficiency to be able to access the language of the test. This is where around EPL 3 where we had the largest group of ELS shown on the prior slide. We see sort of a 50-50 split in partially meeting and exceeding expectations versus not. So we can see that at EPL 3 is where scale starts to tip a little bit. On the right-hand side, you'll see some point differences, and this is just to illustrate and compare how wide the difference is between students who are EPL 1s and 2s versus EPLs 4+ in terms of not meeting expectations. So by the time the students have gotten to the level 4+, in terms of their English language proficiency, you can see how they're performing, and it's just such a wide difference. We show this L data in this way because I want to put in context the MCAS data that we had shown before on slide 13. There's variability in the MCAS performance by EPL, and so when we present our Ls in that data, it's looking at the group as a whole. But in looking at this variability, this is what is consistent with what we would expect for students taking an exam in English when they're still learning English. This is an accountability indicator, our English language learners' progress to proficiency. Now this is all students K to 12. Each student K to 12 are expected to achieve English language proficiency within 6 years. This is based on the research. It takes 6 years to acquire the English language on average. And so when they set, DESE will take a student's performance and say, whatever the cutoff is, that they have to hit that within 6 years. There are milestones every year that students have to hit. This reflects the percentage of students who hit those milestones on an annual basis. As a group across grades in district and state, there was a continued decline from SY22 to SY23. We can see that the decline is post-pandemic, and we can see that for the high schools, it is the most impactful. So these are students who are learning English, and they're making progress to targets. With that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Morse.
Dr. Morse.
Thank you. So our results aren't where we want them to be or where they need to be. We did mention in our last presentation that while the results aren't where we need them to be, the impact, the compounding impact of the pandemic seems to have begun to recede. So as you could see from different data points, the slide seems to have stalled. However, it does require us to do some intentional work in order to begin to rebuild and restructure and reassess and then realign our approaches. So these are a list of a variety of different things that we're doing. It's not an exhaustive list, but these are some things that we wanted to highlight with all of you about the ways we are approaching the comprehensive needs that were discovered through our MCAS analysis. So one thing, as you all know, we recently adopted the CKLA Core Knowledge Language Arts Curriculum, which is rooted in the science of reading. Our goal and hope is that we are able to ensure that all of our students are reading on grade level by grade 3. So that's a committed effort to ensure that we're providing the just right instruction for our students that is based in evidence-based in research. Also, we talk a lot about being ready for the future. And we don't want to only talk about it, we really want to actually see it in action. So we began a SPARK plan. And our SPARK plan is just that, it's to spark innovation and create an incubator program, which we're housing at Walwikas Road under the direction of Dr. Kiriasis. But it's really grounded in the practices of a vision of a learner, which is an important step towards creating a new version of high-quality instruction in the Worcester Public Schools. You heard a lot about how our multilingual students are not making the progress that we hope. We also heard a lot about how the pandemic did impact and stall their progress. So we want to know more, and we want new eyes on a problem that we are hoping to solve together. And so we have partnered with the American Institute for Research, and they're conducting a multilingual education program audit in order to give us some recommendations and some ideas about ways that we can move our programs forward. Also, I know you all know this, but we reorganized our entire support because improving a school district is not just the job of a principal, a job of a teacher, job of a superintendent, it's the job of all of us. So we reorganized the system of support through creation of these quadrant teams. And our quadrant teams are comprised of some high-quality, strong educators who provide individualized and school-wide support, and they are moving from district work to school work, and they're spending almost up to 80% of their time in school sites, in classrooms, with teachers, with students, providing just the right kind of support and coaching that we believe is needed in order for our school district to be able to operationalize this improvement that we are working toward. In addition, I said that improving the district is not just one person, one principal, one teacher, one superintendent. We need our community and our family. So we have created a robust family and community engagement framework. But more than just the framework, we've created some very important opportunities for our families to engage and to provide feedback and to partner with us in our improvement efforts and journey. We are going to go to the next slide just because I want to also reiterate there's more to come. But we are very excited about the new Doherty Memorial High School building, but we're even more excited about some of the programming that's going to be happening inside the walls of that building. So we're excited that we're expanding. We have an eye on how important Chapter 74, career and technical education, is to our city and to our students. So we have a committed effort towards ensuring that college and career are opportunities that we build and design prior to a student leaving us. So they've had opportunities to experience different things that are available to them out in the world and be able to develop their path. So those are important, and this is just one piece of that. There's many more Chapter 74 improvements that we have and career and technical improvements that we have ahead. Another piece we want to share is that it's not just academics and it's not alone that we can do this work. We really do need to enlist the support of our community agencies and our community at large. So we are so excited that we've been able to add a wraparound coordinator at each and every school. And this has been an amazing opportunity for schools, and I have not heard anything but absolute delight from schools that they have this opportunity and they have this resource in their school. The difference they've made already in 9 weeks is amazing. So we talked a lot about above Chapter 74 in college and career, but we are also building one of the most robust early college programs in Massachusetts. So we are continuing to expand our early college programming, and we want to be able to allow more high school students to take courses in conjunction with local universities and receive college credit and envision themselves as college students in the future, if that's what they so choose. But that's not all we're doing. We're doing even more, and we could go on, but I want you to be aware that we have implemented a new updated instructional framework, which is grounded by the vision of a learner, but it's based on evidence-based practices, and it's centered on a sense of belonging. We believe that students learn best in classrooms where they feel respected, in classrooms where they feel understood, and we also know that educators feel best when they work in a classroom where their students and the educator have a great relationship. So we want every piece of instruction to have a sense of belonging component to it. Building relationships is essential. As education is a relational phenomena, it's important that we help our educators and our students with that understanding. So sense of belonging is a central focus. You've heard about it for a couple of years now, but it's a building and continuous effort in our district. I hope you've seen some of our great social media posts and TikToks and different events that are being posted about how our schools are really working hard to build that sense of belonging and make our schools a place where our students want to be and where our educators want to work. And when we say building and sustaining authentic engagement, we mean that from a very honest and vulnerable place. We want to make sure that schools work for all, and they work for all students, they work for all educators. And authentic engagement means it's give and take, back and forth. Input is welcome, and we want to ensure that our students' voice are prominent in the classroom. And they, as you can see from our students here today, our students in the Worcester Public Schools are pretty amazing, and they have a lot of very important things to say. So we want to ensure that we provide that opportunity in our secondary schools and also our elementary schools, because it is their learning journey, and we need to ensure that we provide the just right instruction and an opportunity for our students to be as engaged in their education as they need to be. We also know that reading on grade level is a dire and most important level of priority, and we will commit in every possible way to provide the best quality instruction for our students. We want to work very hard to ensure that we're regularly checking in and monitoring on, are we making the progress that we need to be, and using the tools in the right way, and again, providing standards-based, appropriate instruction. But it is important to know that reading on grade level is an initiative this district has taken very seriously, and we've committed a large financial contribution, thanks to all of you, to make sure that we have the best quality materials to use with our students. It's also important to know that while school is academic, it's also a place where our students learn about the world and they learn about themselves. So we don't want to leave off the table the opportunity for our students to develop self-leadership and leadership skills and be able to develop their interpersonal abilities. So our instructional framework takes all of that into account. All of our lesson designs do include opportunities for students to be leaders in their classroom, and also a piece and a place for how students can feel most comfortable in their learning. So there are 3 big buckets with that. Cognitive and academic skills will always be important in schools, but helping students be leaders and also helping our students solve complex social and relational issues is also very important. We are taking steps, as you know, you hear about it a lot, about becoming a future-ready district. And what that entails, we will learn as we go too, because our kindergartners are graduating in the year, I keep forgetting what it is, 2036, and that is so scary to some of us, because that means we'll be a lot older then. But in 2036, what will the world be like? And we have seen this world transform and change in a couple of years. Like, we've been through so much in the past several years, but we also know with the introduction of new technology and the way our world works, we need to ensure that we're giving our students the opportunities while they're in school now to be most prepared for what that future will be looking like. So we need to be aware of the shift and change and open to doing things in a different way. So I hope today that you heard a little bit more about the MCAS achievement of our subgroups. I hope you also understand that while we're not where we need to be, we are committed to ensuring that we see strong, robust academic rebounds as we implement many of these different initiatives and programs. So with that, if there are any questions.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Morris and Dr. Andrade. Before we open it up to questions from the committee, 2 things I want to point out just about the demographics specifically, because I think it gives a lot of context. So when we talk about our English learners specifically, half of our students are at that level 3, which is developing or higher, which means these are children that if you're having just a social conversation with them, you may not realize that they're English learners or they're learning English for a second language. These are the children that we know can be doing so much better as we support them in their academic growth. So half of our students are really at that place, and we need to be supporting them with, and supporting our teachers with the instructional strategies. The other half of the children are newer to the country, and they have a very different need. So when we get this report from our audit, it will really paint a picture for us of programmatically what's working and what we need to change. But as a committee member, what I want you to be thinking about is when we talk about multilingual children, half of them, if you saw them and then you had a conversation with them on the street, you may not know that they're considered multilingual. Half are, but half aren't. So that's really important to understand contextually. Same thing for our students with disabilities. So about 25% of them are students who qualify because they have what's called specific learning disability, which means they process differently than everyone else. And not differently, let me rephrase that. They tend to have a processing delay many times in what's called auditory processing, which means they just don't do well when someone's just talking at them. A lot of us are like that, right? They do better when they have hands-on type of learning experiences and/or visual inputs. And so when we have 25% of our scholars who are identified as specific learning disabled, that it's a processing delay. Again, lots of opportunity to really move our district collectively. So we do have children who their disability is much more severe, and we want to meet those needs. But I don't want you to think that when you look at these data sets where we have single digits, that's acceptable, because it absolutely is not. We have children that can be doing so much better, and we must be supporting our staff so that our scholars can thrive. With that, I return it back to you, Mayor Petty.
Thank you, Member Kamara.
Thank you. So I want to thank the administration for putting together this detailed analysis. I think when you go deeper into like the comparisons like you have it here, it actually really tells and paints the picture for you, because otherwise to have that whole aggregate number, sometimes like you're wondering. And last week 2 weeks ago, I actually mentioned, thankfully we are actually making strides in at least the math and sciences, especially in schools that are underperforming urban schools. But looking at this number right now, I think that what actually stood out to me, considering like with all of the categories, whether it was ELL, students with disabilities, or the Latino students, or probably like the or actually Native students, the number or the stats for math and science are actually low. And usually even if you speak another language, you actually can do well in math and science. Well, science I know is more like written stuff, but math, I think like our numbers should be like painting a different picture here. So I don't want to, continue, but like for me, that was kind of like the analysis that has been drawn for me, that if our students are not doing so well in English language, because we understand why, I think for subjects like math and science, those numbers should be at least higher. So that's one observation for me. The other observation for me is that we all know that quantitative tests can tell only one picture, and I appreciate quantitative tests, but sometimes you also need a qualitative nature of it. And unfortunately, these numbers don't really tell you the qualitative behind it, and I think the superintendent just kind of narrated some qualitative information that is actually more realistic. And looking at the vision of a learner, for when I'm looking at this thing, I'm thinking that perhaps the qualitative abilities would come out of that with all of the milestones that we have for each of those grades before they graduate from our schools. Like I saw student-led conferences, those are actually action-based things. I saw interview skills. I saw different things that were which a test cannot quantify. So I'm actually hopeful only because of that vision of a learner, and I want to be very honest with that. I'm happy to see the audit and see what we come back with. But one of the things that in the previous or last content of this end of this chapter, the page that we just saw, what I did not see are the fact that now schools are having after-school programs for students who are reading below the grade. I think those are really, for me, that's what I want to hear. Like these are all our schools that are supporting students after school in their reading, and because people have reached out to me about their kids getting a letter because the kids read or qualify for this reading program because they read below, and they were asking me if this is a good thing. I'm like, I said, look, it reads like it. So like I think these are, for me, I don't know anybody else here, these are actually actionable things that I think I would have appreciated, and to know how many schools are doing that. After-school programs that are boosting students up. I went to Worcester Public Schools not too long ago, and even though math was not my strongest point, I was in after-school programs, and I think those helped me. I didn't see any of that in this report. I was privileged enough to go to Worcester Technical High School. I realized I did now start a little bit earlier in the day for other reasons. I think I'm missing here, but like I see that other schools are taking initiatives to really tackle content-based things that are necessary to move the outcomes of students, and I didn't see that here. And I like all the fancy stuff, but like those are the actual things that actually like help move things along. I'm not in the educational field. I read data, I read research, and in the public health research, these are the things. Internationally, nationally, these are the things that I read, where they talked about numbers or students' outcome were poor before, but then they did 1, 2, 3, then it moved. So while I appreciate all this fancy stuff we're doing here, and I love it, to be honest, but I also would like to appreciate or see more of like on the ground, like what are we doing to support students? Like if we're saying grade 3rd to 8, they're reading the math, like what are we actually doing to support them in school, after school, and those type of programs, whether it's virtual or not virtual. I would really like to see those things. And I know I've talked to the superintendent so much about like how we're going to look at supporting our students with disabilities and students with special needs. Same thing, students with disabilities and students with ELL students, and like looking at the audit and maybe looking at how we can restructure things, because I've talked to educators who have told me that the test, the access test, sometimes it does not really mirror the language of the student. So sometimes it's not even the fact that they're not qualified or competent on that test. It's maybe like the translation of the test does not appeal to their understanding of what the content is. So I think there's different things that that I've learned, because this is not my area too. I'm learning from, as I'm hearing from people, that should also be in the picture, and I would like to hear more from those after school programs, because they're worthy to be spoken about.
Thank you. Anyone else? Member Mailman?
Is Tracy?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if this is, I echo the member Kamara's comments about after-school programs and specific extra help efforts. I think that's a great point. I don't know if this is a time when I can try to integrate the held item, or if we have to do that later, Chair.
We could do that as long as no one else has any other comments or anything to add.
So I'm going to try this different.
Give me 1 second. You all set? Thank you guys very much. Appreciate that information and look forward to more reports moving forward. So we will now go back up to G, the held item from member Mailman GB3-225 to request that the administration recommend the best plan to publicly monitor the progress of the health of a male students as it relates to their ability to participate in various programs throughout the district, including areas such as attendance and achievement. Member Mailman.
So I'd like to try to rephrase this item, and any help from my colleagues is appreciated. All of the data that we looked at today, in my view, and I think it was member Novick, but I don't remember for sure, that said, why is the question focused on the male student? I would actually agree with that in hindsight and say, let's say gender data. I am looking for more information along all of every time we do these accountability measures, whether it's only this time of year or there's another time during the year, I would like to see, when I go to DESE's website, I can see Asian students, Black students, white students, Latino students, male, female, across a bunch of different sectors. And I don't see that in any of our reporting in our Worcester data. And I would like to, so while I appreciate the slide that was just male, female, that didn't really tell me anything. And I don't think it's something that we get, just by that virtue, that we can measure going forward. I was at Quinsig, so I went on DESE's website. I can see the male, female breakdowns all over the place. I was at Quinsig today for Hispanic Heritage Month, and they had some tremendous speakers on diversity and they had higher ed people there as well. And one of the speakers was from UMass Boston, and she spoke about UMass Boston doing more work, further breaking down subgroups, not just Latino, but you talked a little bit about it. Who's new to the country, who's not new to the country, what countries do those people, and the more they do that, the more they can pinpoint what we're looking for, who we're trying to help the most. And so I would just, rephrase this item, or maybe the item is to ask administration to provide us always, when we're looking at subgroup progress on any of these accountability scores, that we include gender breakdown. Is that a legitimate item?
Yes. Yeah, so you're looking to amend the wording of your item to
what I just said.
To include gender breakdown.
Thank you.
And you would like a report back on that?
Well, I would like administration to confirm that it would be possible to show us, when we're looking at data like this, that we're also including the gender breakdown of the subgroups.
Okay. Member Novak?
So first, Mr. Chair, I thought that we were taking Member Mailman's item together with the report, so I actually did have questions on that. But just to maybe piggyback onto what we're discussing right this second, what we can do is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Member Mailman, but I believe that essentially what she's asking is for the administration to adopt as the sort of standing practice that when they're reporting data to the Worcester School Committee, that they are providing gender breakdown along with the rest of the subgroup data that they provide. In which case, if administration is agreeable, we can sort of vote that and file it, because she's not asking for a report to come back. She's just asking for kind of a new practice in terms of data. And if I have poorly put that, Member Mailman, please correct me.
Nope, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Okay. And you good with that?
Yes, I am.
All right, so
If administration can do it, which they haven't responded to yet.
Superintendent?
Through the chair, just for clarity, so for example, because we could do it for MCAS, not a problem, and I believe we can do it for all, but I just want to make sure we do it. So if we're doing chronic absenteeism, so gender becomes one of our student groups that we report on, whatever that data set is.
Correct, and within subgroups, you know, I can.
Oh, I see. So
Right.
if we're looking at our
So I'm
Latino
looking at-
subgroup, then how are the male Latinos doing versus the female Latinos doing?
I'm looking at graduation results. This is on DESE's website. African-American females, African-American
Yes,
males, Asian
okay.
females, Asian males.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
All right, so we're looking to, with that agreement, we're looking to approve and file? I mean, just to approve, right?
As amended.
Approve as amended. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes. We all set?
Mr. Chairman, what do we do with the superintendent? Approve the portion or file? The presentation, do we file that? Thank you.
Where are we at now? He got me up here. Yes, I know.
Reports of the standing committees on the top of the next page.
Where? L?
Reports of standing.
Okay, so we move on to reports of the standing committee. To consider approval of minutes of teacher, learning, student supports, meeting held on September 12th, 2023. Member McCullough?
Thank you so much. And through the chair, we held our teaching, learning, and student support meeting on September 12th at 5 o'clock at Durkin Administration Building. And the first item was I believe it's GB 2-61.1, to request that the administration, before further expansion of the pre-K programming in the WPS, include local nonprofit early education care partners in order to incorporate lessons learned and avoid pitfalls of 20 years ago. We were given information about the current offerings and the Countdown to Kindergarten program, as well as information that the task force for future early education programming is taking shape, and we would be getting further information down the road. And there was excitement shared by my colleagues, Member Mailman and Member Kamara, and we were in support of holding the item until we have additional backup for administration. So that item was held on a roll call of 3-0. The next and final item of this agenda was GB 2-292.2 to request that the administration consider exploring driver's ed utilizing local driving schools at the high school level. We were given updated information regarding the data for the students participating, and that there is going to be a program beginning in January of 2024 with student slots funded through a grant in conjunction with AAA and Nightlife. Member Mailman asked the total value of the grant. It was shared with us that it's $48,328 and covers 40 hours of classroom instruction, 8 hours of driving, and 8 hours of observation for each participating student. And Worcester Tech is actually being used as the base for this pilot. I requested that administration provide an update of the program in June of 2024. Member Kamara questioned how long the program will run, and currently the grant is from 2024 through 2026, and we can look into expanding with other driving schools and high schools. Member Kamara made the motion to request administration provide an update once the program rolls out. I made a motion to hold this item until June of 2024 with the amendment to receive the update once the program rolls out, and on a roll call of 3-0, the item was held and the meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Any questions? Approve? Roll call.
Member Clancy.
Yes.
Member Kamara.
Yes.
Member Mailman. Member McCullough.
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Johnson.
Yes. To consider approval of the minutes for Finance and Operations meeting held on September 18, 2023. Member O'Connell-Novick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do just want to say that I hope that we can do a faster turnaround on subcommittee meetings. It used to be our practice that if it was before the Tuesday of a Thursday meeting, we had the minutes. We had the auditors in, first of all. So we had Budget Director Sarah Consalvo and Kara Spinelli, who is Spinelli Accountants and Advisor, do our agreed upon procedure review. Everything is correct as reported. The only thing that came up was pre-populated line numbers that the state inputs that then don't directly tie into the city of Worcester numbers. It really was just a timing issue. Other than that, there really were no issues, which is always what you want to hear when the auditors come in. On a roll call vote of 3-0, the item was approved and filed. And then we had our quarterly building maintenance report, GB 2-92.12. We had a full presentation, and I do want to recommend to my colleagues that if you didn't look at it, that you do so, of what happened with maintenance and facilities across the district over the summer. This also included an update on where we are with hiring custodians, with implementation of the new computerized maintenance management system, environmental health and safety. There was then an ensuing conversation covering everything from pest control to traffic management. We've had several conversations, of course, around that. Conversations regarding the impact of a roof leak on the gym floor at the new gym floor at Elm Park. We had a conversation regarding staffing and how recruitment is going. And we also then did have another update about the bottle fillers because of the information there. There is an update coming on Tuesday's agenda regarding the HVAC work. So please note that the sort of in-depth ESSER funding HVAC was not part of this conversation. On a roll call vote of 3-0, the item was held. And then we took sort of somewhat in conjunction with that, Member Melman's GB 3-159.1 on a focus on finance and operations. And Mr. Allen presented to us a list of targeted facilities tours for the coming meetings that actually then are going to be administration's way of bringing forward particular things that they think are important, particularly in line with the strategic plan, to ensure that we're fully updated in terms of what we see as the coming issues, ADA accessibility, enrollment, overcrowding, and so forth. Member Mailman asked about a dashboard. That is something from Mr. Allen's response that we're moving forward towards, and that the part of the goal here would be to show progress on these projects. And then there was actually a question asked about WRTA. And that item was likewise held. And then the meeting was adjourned at 7:28. And that is my report, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, thank you. And we need a roll call?
Approve on a roll call.
Approve on the roll call?
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson? Yes. Member Kamara? Yes. Member Mailman? Member McCullough? Yes. Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay, we have approved the minutes of the governance employee issues held on October 3rd.
Thank you.
Member Clancy?
Yes. Thank you. For the chair, the Standing Committee on Governance Employee Issues met on October 3rd. The first item that we took up was an item brought to us back in March of 2022, was to consider a one-year alteration to the district policy, which was limited excused absences to 7 days in the light of quarantine requirements during COVID-19. Dr. Morris got up and recommended that we lift the current policy restrictions because the current policy exists concerning all excused absences, which we made some changes to last spring. So I made a motion that to file this item, and on a roll call of 3-0, that item was filed. The next item that we took up was GB 2-2941, which was to review the current policy regarding service and service animals in the schools and make necessary changes. This was actually brought back to us, so this was the second time the policy came to us. And Chief Academic Support, Arzaloza, referred to the rough draft again that we still are working with. Member Johnson did question the elimination of the phrase regarding animals being a threat to others and asked for clarification. And Ms. Arzaloza responded that the phase was omitted to align with the policy with ADA compliance. I did request that we add some sort of information in there regarding accredited training to be added as a recommendation to the policy change. And on a roll call of 3-0, that item was actually is going to be held in governance for further work from the administration to get that policy updated. The next item that we took up was GB 3-69, which was to review and or generate policies regarding the public use of school playgrounds, adjoining playgrounds, and parks during school days and recess times. Mr. Allen did report to us that there is an agreement from 2015 between the city and the Worcester Public Schools, and it's being reviewed with the representatives, and there will be a new recommended document that will be submitted that will cover all of our facilities. So that item was actually, I made a motion to hold that item, and on a roll call 3-0, that item was held. The next item we took was GB 3-1001, which was to suspend the voluntary school uniform policy unless and until language is added providing an exit to that policy. If you look in the backup that was provided today, the school administration did provide an update as to language to actually get you out of the voluntary uniform policy, which it's going to be the reversal of how they got in. If a school no longer wishes to implement a uniform policy, that the following steps be taken. A majority vote be taken by the school council to rescind and the voluntary uniform policy in the school with principal approval. The principal forwards that request to the clerk of the school committee, who will place it on the agenda for the school committee's approval in order to rescind that policy. So we actually did add some language to that policy to provide an exit for schools that were wishing not to partake in the uniform policy moving forward. So on a motion to approve the amended policy on a roll call 3-0, that motion was approved. The next item that we took up was to revise district policy KHB, which was regarding advertising. Mr. Allen did speak about the revised policy, which was concerning electric signs. I made the reference point, which was number 4, to the 2000 policy, and that if it's okay that it was retained as is. If you see, there's just the number 4 on there. We also did make, I believe it was the item to omit that it just stated Foley Stadium, just in case there are electric signs that do go up in other areas of our school district. And the motion was made to approve the item as amended, and on a roll call 3-0, that item was approved. Next, we took up ROS 3-14, which was to get an update on the strategic plan, and Mr. Allen updated us on the information that was held with the public stakeholders and the leadership team, and he reviewed some of the highlights and priorities that were brought forward to us. And he also stated there were 24 community members and 42 staff members that did participate in this process. Member McCullough stated that she did appreciate the work of the plan and how they aligned with the superintendent's goals. And Member Johnson echoed Member McCullough's comments, as did I. And the chairperson, myself, did question, sorry, I'm just reading. I did question whether we were still involved with the Hanover group, and Mr. Allen did point out that there is an additional meeting on October 30th to put the final draft on the report, and will be submitted to the entire, to governance for full school committee review. And on a roll call of 3-0, that item was held. And to end the evening, we actually broke into executive session, which was to consider the interview applicants for employment for the clerk of the schools, the clerk of the school committee. And on I made a motion to recess to executive session on a roll call of 3-0. That was approved, and the meeting was adjourned at 6:31. Thank you.
Thank you. All set. Roll call. Member Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick things. One is I will vote in favor of the amended policy, but I do just want to commend, when we do the next handbook review to administration, that we take another look at the voluntary uniform policy. We have no other policy in the Worcester Public Schools whereby a group of parents can bind an entire school in perpetuity, essentially. And I do think that it's an inappropriate use of really kind of anyone's authority. And then the only other thing I was going to say is that I noticed, and I want to thank Member Clancy for getting us the actual backup of the policies, that the other thing that we need to do to KHB is we need to change the language, the verb case, because we've made it singular, advertising. So if we can just change all of the verbs to, it's, advertising shall not be approved that is obscene, that incites students, and so forth. We can just make it singular. But with that, I would vote to approve.
Okay, all set. So as amended, roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
And Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Let's see where we are here. Okay. We're going to consider a prior year payment to, is it Herc Rentals in the amount of $3,250 for an invoice that was received after the purchase order was closed. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes, to get a report on the new pilot program in Parent Square. This report is to include the plan costs, terms associated with entering into this contract. Recommendation is to approve.
Thank
Member
you.
Clancy?
Through the chair to the administration. So reading the backup, I see that we're in a 3-year contract with this company. And, doing a little bit of research, I do have a question. So we're doing, is every school right now opting in to do the pilot this year, or were they voluntarily, they opted in themselves?
Madam Superintendent?
Through the chair, they are opting in, and they are opting in very, very quickly. I just had our communications officer, Mr. Bryan, share that we now have 32 schools that want to
Okay, great.
pilot.
And I will say, I do know at least one of my daughter's schools has opted in, and I'm actually excited about it because I'm reading different reviews on this, so I'm excited to see how it works. My only question is, if we're doing this pilot, we hate it after a year, but we're in a 3-year contract.
Through the chair, so we can always exit out of a contract.
Okay.
We always have that clause in there.
Okay.
We just have to give a notice. I think it's a 30-day notice, don't hold me to that, but we just have to give notice.
Okay. And for parents, caregivers, is there going to be some sort of like training, or are we going to look to do anything? Because I know sometimes things have rolled out before and we're told to get the app, but sometimes we're not familiar with how to use everything.
So, excuse me, through the chair. So we will, actually, for the end user, there's not much you need to know. It's
Okay.
very, very simple. But we, Mr. O'Brien and I have been talking about different ways that we can get this information to families so that they see. But most parents won't even notice that there's a difference. Aside from it's much more easier.
Okay. I do know, I know at Nelson Place, we're thinking about possibly addressing it at like a PTO meeting to try to get some of the training done there, because I think that'd be a good, so it's just an idea, maybe to reach out to other PTOs and site councils to get that information out. Okay, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Kamara?
Thank
What's
you.
that?
No, actually, yes. So I will also onto that, because I certainly understand, like, whenever we change in the real world, whenever you change something, people always are not excited about it and they have to latch on, and it takes time. So I just to go with my member, I would appreciate, and I'm pretty sure that the Family and Communication Department already is aware of this, for us to do robust hands on the ground, or whatever you want to say, and within all our schools, so, including the PTOs, but we also know like a lot of our parents are not in PTOs that need to be a part of this information. So I would appreciate that we do that. And in as much as I hope that this works for the next like 3 years or more, because it sucks to be, going backwards and forwards, and I'll be pissed if I'm a parent. So I just want to say that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve and file. I'm sorry, Member Novick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Member Clancy putting this item on, because I was really disturbed to learn from administration that we had already signed a contract for something we said we were piloting. There wasn't a teacher tryout, there wasn't a parent tryout, there wasn't an anybody on the ground tryout. Administration went ahead and signed a 3-year contract and then said we were piloting. And that's backwards. We can't do that to people. And having been in both the position of the teacher who gets the memo from central administration that this is the new thing we're using, and having now been a parent who's gone through multiple iterations of multiple kinds of apps or communication devices, some of which I was told about and some of which just suddenly showed up on my phone, I don't like the way that this was done at all. This was not the right way to do this. And I would expect that the feedback from the pilot program, both from staff, and by staff here, I actually do mean like classroom level staff, not just principals, and also from families, and families in multiple situations, both those who are multilingual, those who have students in multiple schools, actually come back to the committee before we move forward. I assume that this is going to be part of a budget line, because I will absolutely vote to move this if this isn't working for families and isn't working for staff. I'm hearing some very dubious things, frankly, across the country, particularly for families who have students in multiple schools, in terms of how this works. So I will say that I approach these kinds of things with a skeptical eye, yes, but I really don't like the way this decision was made. And I'd like to see us do better on that kind of thing, of starting from the end users rather than telling the end users that they're trying something out that we've already signed a contract. Thank you.
Okay, well set. Motion's to approve and to file. Roll call.
Member Clancy.
Yes.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Kamara.
Yes.
Member Mailman.
Yes.
Member McCullough.
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick.
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Next, request the rules of the school committee be amended to allow an item to be placed on the agenda. The school committee meeting after Wednesday deadline and before 48-hour open meeting law. Posting time with the consent of the mayor. This is as it reads and sent to governance for review. Okay. Was it Ms. Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because we are instructing the subcommittee, I'm going to ask that we amend this because I want to make sure that we are instructing the subcommittee in something that we actually agree to. So I have no issue with the notion of there needing to be an emergency amendment process. I don't think that the one that is being proposed here aligns with the work that this committee and frankly the previous committee have done in making sure that our rules align to what we know our job needs to be under Mass General Law, and particularly continually paying attention to the critique we received from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in 2007 around our agendas. So I would appreciate it if we can amend this to something like to request governance create an amendment process for emergency items to be placed on the agenda.
Okay. You can send that over.
Thank you.
Roll call.
This is on the amendment or the motion to refer?
Both. As amended.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay. Consider the approval of the proposed schedule of school committee meeting dates for the calendar 2024. Member McCullough?
Thank you, and I would just like to ask that I'm fine with the dates of the calendar, but I believe we just want to make sure that the executive session reflects the time that we wanted it to be. I think we wanted to possibly keep them at 5 and evaluate at the different meetings on a case-by-case basis based on the substance that is going to be on those agendas, while keeping the regular session times stagnant, as so the public knows the time of the actual public meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to Member Kamara?
Yes, so to add to that, I filed an item earlier this year that because I was trying to go through all the dates for next year, and I hope that we have considered in May when we have like multiple budget season dates. I know that we can maybe think about that in advance, but also the holy month, so that we don't run into kind of like figuring out extra meetings. So I hope that all of these things were accounted. Thank you so much.
Okay, well set. So motion to approve. Oh.
Mr. Chair.
Member Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I appreciate having this all in advance. Secondly, to Member Kamara's point, the 25th of April is the third night of Passover. So in attempting to avoid April vacation, we have actually moved it onto a holiday. And I would propose, I understand the longstanding practice of this committee, not necessarily others, but this committee of avoiding April vacation meetings. I would hold that it is a higher priority for us to avoid a holy day than to say that we're not meeting over April vacation. And so I would suggest that we move that back. The only other thing I'm going to note is that the 7th of November will conflict with the Massachusetts Association of Superintendents and School Committee Joint Conference. So we may want to move that meeting to the following Thursday.
So I didn't follow that. So what's the amendment?
So my suggestion would be that we move the April 25th meeting back to the 18th. And I'm going to acknowledge in advance that that would put it during April vacation, but that will mean that we'll avoid Passover. And then I would suggest that we probably are going to want to move the November 7th meeting to November 14th, because this committee, because most of us are going, has been making it a practice to avoid the joint superintendents and school committee conference. And the joint school committee and superintendent conference will be November 7th. So we probably want to instead meet November 14th.
Okay. Member McCullough?
Thank you. And certainly understand both of those points. If we're going to move the April meeting, I don't know if it's a conflict on the 11th, but I would make the motion that we don't move it to April vacation, simply because I believe probably a lot of people may have already planned things for April of 2024. And, certainly administration may not be available either, if that's the case for them. I'm not sure, but just if that's something, I'm not sure if that's a holiday though, so I don't know on April 11th if we're talking about that. Certainly if it conflicts with Passover, we want to be mindful of that.
Since we have time, we'll put it back to the clerk, and he'll take everything in and reproduce it, and talk to everybody, and see who's away and who's not away. We'll figure that out. Because we, tell you the truth, we usually end up changing the holidays and the religious days anyways, so we might as well get a handle on it. Okay, so I'm going to recommit that. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. To look at the current rules of the Worcester School Committee, update preparation for the new school committee starting January 2024.
As it reads.
Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Next is consider dedicating the auditorium of Dirk Administration in honor Dr. Helen Frail, who dedicated her professional life to the Worcester Public Schools. So I'm going to have to send that to governance. Yep. So, okay, roll call. Do we have a date for that? No, date for the, okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so send that to governance, roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Clarification, can this just go right to public comment? Does it have to go to
First of all, in
governance?
the middle of a roll call, we don't do this in the middle of a roll call.
Okay.
But, given your question, I will answer that.
Thank you.
The public comment is at the governance committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, you need a public besides the school committee meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes, so we have a motion to adjourn. Roll call.
Member Clancy? Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell Novick?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?